worked. Thanks, Munir. Yeah, I can, yeah. That's brilliant. Alright, thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Take care. Bye. Hi guys, today's session will be what to do after you have an interview with the client. We've obviously gone through what you do prior to the interview, getting all of your information together. So the majority of the hard work has kind of already been done up to this point. I think when you've come out of the interview, there's a few things that you need to consider, and there's a few tasks that you need to do to try and improve your chances of success and get a successful outcome from the interview itself. So we'll jump straight in. There's 6 steps in total that we're going to cover off, and these six steps are: record, reflect, send a thank you note, notify your references, check on your progress, and what to do if you didn't get the job. Okay, so we'll jump into the first one, which is record. So whilst you're in the interview, you should be thinking about how you can record the information that you've spoken about. So I'm not telling you to use your recorder on your phone, because obviously that's not the done thing, but the majority of people would take notes during the interview. Often, if you're anything like me, when you're trying to take notes, it's really hard to focus and to write everything down. So as soon as you finish your interview, my best advice is to get your pad of paper, get your pen, and write down everything that you can remember that you were asked, how you responded to those questions, and what your thoughts were, what your initial thoughts were. The reason I recommend you do this right away is the chances of you forgetting what was spoke about, and the chances of you kind of forgetting how you felt is very high. You're in a stressful environment. You're probably not thinking as clearly as you usually would, because an interview can be a bit intense. So just make sure that you write down a summary for yourself over anyone else. By doing this process, this will help you, if you're invited for a second stage or a third stage interview. I've lost count the amount of times I've interviewed somebody in the first stage, and then they've come back for a second or third, and their background story or their reasons for wanting to join the business have changed. It just seems to me like they've interviewed at too many sites and probably haven't really thought this through. So just be really clear on your notes, and then also this will be really good for you to help you with your practice materials for future interviews. So if you've got all your notes and you can clearly see where you've done well, and then also where maybe you didn't do so well, having all this recorded is going to help you. So make sure you do record everything that was said and what you covered off in your interview. Okay, so on that reflection part, if there's one thing that we don't do very well as humans is reflect. Often we're in the grind, we work hard, we do what we can, but we don't spend enough time reflecting on what we've done. So in this scenario, what did you do well in the interview? Let's start with the positives. Try and list these things off. Be familiar with these, because these are going to come up. The first thing that's going to happen is, if you've gone through a recruiter, they're going to want feedback. So it's good to do this reflection part early. But more for your sanity, was there something that you didn't provide a strong answer for? And if so, how would you clarify that answer if you were asked that question again? Going over these in your mind, making sure that you're clear on all of this stuff is really important, because you won't be able to improve your interviewing process if you don't do this reflection piece. So it is important to do. And then I can think of 1,000 occasions where a candidate is interviewed with a client. They've come out and said, I didn't quite hear the question properly, or I thought they meant this question, but really they clarified and they meant something else. I spent a bit of time there, wasted a bit of time answering the wrong question. If I'd had my time again, I would have answered it in this way, or I'd have used this example for that type of questioning. If you don't do the reflection part, you're not going to know this stuff. So it's really important to do this. The reason we do that reflection is going into the next slide here. It's to send a thank you note. If you're going through a recruiter, send the recruiter an email with your reflection straight away. If you're going directly, it's probably not a good thing to send your full reflections, because if you're going through a recruiter, it's kind of their job to ensure that you've got all of that information to them, so they can then speak to the client and go through them points individually to aid your success and to help you with that journey. If you've gone direct, then it's really good manners to send a thank you note. So if you've got a relationship with this interviewer and you've got their email address, then that would probably be the best form of communication. Again, I keep going back to LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn and you're connected with your interviewers, as part of that preparation piece, obviously we recommended that you have a look at who you're interviewing with, have a look at their profiles, try and add them as a connection. So if you are connected, then LinkedIn's probably better, because it's a bit less formal, a bit more casual. But look, if you haven't got that connection, you haven't got the email address, then even to write a note in the post, which sounds like a preposterous thing to do these days, it's better than not, is the point. Now, there's a number of reasons why you'd want to do this. The main one is obviously to thank them for their time. People's time is really important, so if they've given you the time to interview, then you should respect that. But you can also include a recap of your strengths and how you can add value to that organisation. You can also address any awkward moments or questions that you could not fully answer during the interview. And if there's a number of different people on the panel, you could send a separate custom email for each person who you've interviewed with. So example might be, you're interviewing with 5 people, send 5 emails, send 5 notes. If it's a phone or a video interview, then an email is absolutely fine. If you've done a video interview, chances are you'll have their email address, because they'll send you an invite. But if it's a face-to-face interview and you haven't got any of their details, don't be afraid to reach out via snail mail or however we want to call it. And then obviously, if you haven't already sent them a connection request, leave it a day or so. Send them a thank you, because when you send a connection request to somebody, you have 300 characters. Use those 300 characters to thank the interviewer and send them a connection request that way. And then obviously, if the interview went well and you think that the interviewer might contact your references, then obviously you need to let your references know. The worst thing you can do at this point is you've done your prep, you've done well in the interview, you've done your aftercare after the interview, you've done everything right. You don't notify your references don't give you the same information as what you would just given the people that have interviewed you. That is a big flag. So whatever you spoke about in the interview, whatever you discussed about your background, make sure that your referee is clear on why you've interviewed with that organisation, what value you think you can add. Make sure you go through that because that's really important. All right, so check. After a week or so, if you've not heard back, ask the interviewer where you stand in the hiring process. Ask if they want any additional materials from you. Sometimes they might want evidence or a portfolio, or whatever the role you're going for is going to be different. And then obviously provide additional materials such as new references if that's what they require. You checking and following up is actually a lot more powerful than you think. You're basically putting your best foot forward and keeping yourself in the shop window for this opportunity. The aim basically is to reinforce your interest in the role and just to build that relationship further. Now, if you don't get a job, don't stress too much. It's kind of normal. If you think about how many applicants there are for each role, especially during these times, the odds are you're probably not going to get the job that you apply for. You're going to have to apply for lots of jobs before you're successful, unless you are the perfect profile for what they're looking for, which is often not the case, very rare anyway. So if you went through this process, don't be downbeat. Don't be too upset. Regardless of the level of the role as well, keep these steps in mind. Thank your interviewer for their time and their consideration. Ask if they could share their feedback with you for you to improve, for your next interview. And if they are happy to give you feedback, then maybe suggest either a phone call, a Zoom, or even a face-to-face. A face-to-face or a Zoom might be too much. A phone call, I think, is fine. But what you're looking to get out of this is, look, I thought I did this well. I maybe could have improved this. Just looking for some feedback so I can improve for next time. I really love your organisation. Really like what you're doing. Please consider me if you have more roles in the future. You having that maturity and that proactive nature to do that is going to stand you in really good stead. So it's going to show that you're really professional, and you're going to learn something in the future from doing that. There's a few references here if you're interested, but basically this is always going to be a bit of a shorter session. Usually the sessions last, I don't know, half an hour or so, but in this scenario, because it is that it's that follow-up more than anything, I think it's important that we keep it short and succinct. But I think the main thing is, don't be afraid to follow up. There's nothing wrong with getting feedback, and just try and stick to the steps that we covered, because if you do all those things, you can put your head on the pillow at night and say, well, I actually did everything I could there. So all the best of luck. I will see you next week. Take care.